What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, bringing you the latest from Taipei to start off your week. And the latest news is that Taiwan and the Pacific island nation of Nauru could be ending diplomatic relations. That's according to a report from Reuters. Taiwan and Nauru established diplomatic ties in 2005. This news comes just 2 days after Taiwan's presidential elections, which saw ruling DPP candidate Lai Ching-te win. If the break finalizes, Taiwan will only have 12 remaining diplomatic allies. Nauru's embassy in Taiwan told TaiwanPlus that it has no comment on this matter. Now, after Saturday's election, there is disappointment in all three of Taiwan's big political parties after none of them won a legislative majority. John Van Trieste has this story.
For Taiwan's biggest opposition party, it's a time to reflect on what went wrong. Though the Kuomintang, or KMT, made big gains in the legislature, it failed to win a majority in Saturday's election. It also failed to win the presidency, giving the ruling Democratic Progressive Party a historic third term. As the party's presidential candidate Ho Yo-i bows out and leaves the stage, some KMT supporters are now finger-pointing. Their target is party chair Eric Zhu.
除了主将要检讨之外，总教练本来就应该要负责。那请问为什么这一次朱立伦不用下台负责？
But the KMT isn't the only party reflecting. The Taiwan People's Party is also thinking about how to move forward. This emerging party still wants to be a viable third force in Taiwan's politics, breaking the two-party system. It did pick up some seats in the legislature, but these were all special seats that don't have a fixed district. In every regional race, its candidates lost.
应该大家会静下心来，经过也给一点时间，那党内会开始收集一些意见，那作为下次改进的一个方针。
And even the DPP, with its unprecedented third presidential term in a row, is disappointed. It only won the presidency with 40% of the vote. And it lost its legislative majority. Taiwan is set to have no majority in its one-chamber legislature for the first time in 20 years. Analysts say the DPP also has some hard thinking to do.
很明显的，这次民进党可能流失一半的一个连续选票到柯文哲那边去了。其他的政党对民进党种种的一些批评。 好，以及说民进党执政所呈现出来的一个问题，我想民进党必须要好好去做一个重新的一个检讨。
With no party winning a resounding mandate, it's also time to see whether these three blocs can build coalitions, or whether Taiwan will face political stalemate. James Lin and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
With no majority, Taiwan's two main parties are wrangling for the position as head of the legislature. But the decision may not be up to them. Louise Watt reports.
This is Taiwan's legislature, where the country's newly elected representatives are set to take office in a little over 2 weeks' time. But as this time around, neither of the two main parties has a majority, a key question is who will be the next speaker? A smaller third party that has increased its own seats is set to play a critical role in deciding. The Taiwan People's Party is in the most powerful position for a third party in 20 years. It wants to reform the country's political system and make the presidential and cabinet more accountable. The TPP have told journalists they want both bigger parties to promise they will do just that. Then they will decide which party's candidate for speaker to support.
我们要的是未来的改革，而不是谁来当院长。所以今天我们提出的很简单，就是比正副院长更重要的是国会改革。
The current speaker is from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and has the power to decide the order of proceedings and when bills are put to a vote. Both the ruling DPP and main opposition KMT want the Taiwan People's Party's support. But it has said that when the next session gets underway, it doesn't want to align with just one party. Rather, it wants to decide on which individual policies to support. The Taiwan People's Party ran on a platform wanting to break through Taiwan's two-party dominated system. Right now, when it comes to electing the head of the legislature, it holds all the cards in its hands. Joseph Wu and Louise Watt in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
The KMT's defeated presidential candidate could be facing a bumping political future. Over 80,000 people have joined a Facebook group pushing to recall Ho Yo-i as new Taipei city mayor. Some are unhappy that he took time off to run for president only to lose. But the group's far short of the over 800,000 votes needed to remove him. Ho won a 5-star rating for his first term as new Taipei mayor and was re-elected in a landslide vote in 2022. He is now promising to refocus on the city.
我要在这里给新北市的市民说一声抱歉。未来我一定会加倍奉还，全力以赴，让新北市的建设永不停歇。
President Tsai once says a visit from a delegation of former top U.S. officials highlights the close and staunch relationship between the U.S. and Taiwan. The group is also voicing Washington's continued support for peace and stability in the region.
Based on our unofficial but warm relationship, our insistence on exclusively peaceful means to address the cross-strait issues, the importance of dialogue, and the avoidance of unilateral efforts to change the status quo.
The delegation arrived just one day after the DPP's Lai Ching-te won Saturday's presidential vote. In their meeting with Lai, he promised to maintain the cross-strait status quo while working with friendly countries like the U.S. The delegation will meet later with leaders of the TPP and the KMT. They say the U.S. is looking forward to working with officials across Taiwan's political spectrum. And as we heard, the U.S. says peace and security in the Taiwan Strait will continue to be one of its most important priorities. But how will the two countries work together under President-elect Lai Ching-te? To find out, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to David Sachs, a security analyst with the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C.
What can we expect from the incoming Lai administration in terms of U.S. and Taiwan defense cooperation?
Well, I think that the bottom line is that under President Lai, we would expect more of the same, which is to continue to enhance U.S.-Taiwan defense cooperation. And so, I think over the last 8 years under President Tsai, we've done a lot, not only with training, but also, of course, with arms sales and now getting into foreign military financing and presidential drawdown authority. And I would expect, especially on the mill-to-mill front, with enhanced training and really working with Taiwan's military, that would be really stepped up in the coming years. So I think that it's going to be a lot of the same.
And on the other side, looking towards China, what do you think Lai Ching-te is going to do to handle security in the Taiwan Strait?
Yeah, well, I thought that President-elect Lai's victory speech was really well done in the sense that, he extended an open hand to Beijing, said that he was open to cross-strait dialogue on an equal footing, and that he sought to replace, confrontation and hostility with cooperation. So I actually think that Lai's strategy is that he doesn't want to give Beijing an excuse to ramp up pressure on Taiwan or continue to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait, and to make it clear that when there is more pressure put on Taiwan and China is doing more militarily or economically to coerce Taiwan, that it's clear to the United States, to Japan, to Europe, and to the world who the aggressor is. And I think that, that's the key thing for the incoming administration. I think that's the focus. And so far, he hasn't really given Beijing an opening to exploit and say, we are doing X because we were provoked by, President-elect Lai or anything like that.
Looking forward to the year 2027, it's a year that the U.S. says that Xi Jinping, China's president, has instructed the military to be able to take Taiwan. Now, many are debating whether that's a deadline or that's a start date for a potential conflict with Taiwan. But what can Taiwan do to deter a conflict from erupting in the Taiwan Strait?
So I would say at the top, personally, I don't believe that 2027 is a fixed date on the calendar in Beijing. And so I think that what the United States does and what Taiwan does can push back whatever kind of date or objective or goal Xi Jinping has in his mind. So, the top of my list would be that President Tsai has nearly doubled the defense budget over the last 8 years. I think that's great. And so I would like to see President Lai pursuing that with, 4 consecutive years of defense spending increases as a percentage of GDP. I would like to see a lot more on Taiwan on the defense industrial side, as well as building up, its own defense industrial base in terms of missile production, drone development and production, sea mines, all the types of asymmetric platforms that we talk about that are critical for Taiwan's defense.
That was David Sachs, a security analyst with the Council on Foreign Relations, speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. China has officially reacted to Lai's election as Taiwan's next president. But as Rosie Greninger explains, some people in China are hoping for peaceful cross-strait relations.
2 days since Taiwan elected Lai Ching-te of the Democratic Progressive Party to rule the nation, China is reaffirming its claim on the country. Avoiding taking aim directly at the DPP, which is taking an unprecedented third term in power, Beijing is warning Taiwan not to push for independence, saying its One China principle is a solid anchor for peace across the Taiwan Strait.
台湾岛内谁想搞台独，就是分裂中国的国土，必将遭到历史和法律的严惩。
But on the streets of Shanghai and Hong Kong, more optimistic views of collaboration.
我觉得可能短期就很难再恢复到另外一个 level 吧，但是我觉得应该也不会特别恶化，可能在相对更加紧张的环境下，然后再探讨另外一种平衡。
你主張到啦，即係最緊都係和平處理啦，大家。
Taiwan depends heavily on trade with China, and Lai has been making efforts to soften his earlier stance for independence, knowing he has to find a way to work with the country's cross-strait neighbour without upsetting the status quo.
I think basically the policy, foreign policy, cross-strait relations will remain the same. But it very much depends upon Xi Jinping's attitude, I would say.
But with President-elect Lai, Beijing's least preferred choice, vowing to safeguard Taiwan's democracy, the Chinese leader's attitude towards the island nation may not be so diplomatic. Ryan Wu and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Prominent Taiwan democracy leader Ming-teh has died aged 83 after years of battling cancer. Known as Taiwan's Nelson Mandela, Shih spent over a quarter of his life in prison for defying Taiwan's authoritarian Kuomintang regime. Shih served one term as chair of the Democratic Progressive Party, but he later split from the party in protest over corruption in the government of then-President Tsai. Shih leaves behind a legacy as one of Taiwan's most prominent fighters for freedom, equality, and human rights. In international news, North Korea has fired a hypersonic missile, the first time it has ever done so. State media says the launch tested new solid-fuel engines and a more maneuverable warhead. Pyongyang says it did not pose a threat to neighboring countries. This test took place on the same day the North's foreign minister left on a visit to Russia. Pyongyang and Moscow are strengthening military relations, with the North suspected of providing missiles to Russia to use in its war in Ukraine. Chaotic scenes in Guatemala over the inauguration of President-elect Bernardo Arévalo. Protesters and police scuffled after the inauguration was delayed by Congress for several hours. Arévalo won the election in August, but his swearing-in has seen legal attacks from Congress over the past several months. Guatemala is one of Taiwan's few remaining diplomatic allies, and Foreign Minister Joseph Wu is in the country to attend the inauguration. A volcano has sent lava flowing into a town in Iceland, setting houses on fire. The lava started pouring into the fishing town of Grindavik after 2 fissures opened nearby. The whole town has been evacuated, and there have been no reported casualties. It's the second time this volcano has erupted in less than a month. Thanks for joining us today on What's Up Taiwan. Get more of our reports on your device by downloading the TaiwanPlus app or by following us on social media. Finally, check out these sculptures on the streets of Caracas, Venezuela. They're based off Diego Velázquez's 17th century painting, Las Meninas. I'm Eric Gao, and we'll see you later.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.